Hello and welcome to the Profitable Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Rich, and as the founder of the Bold Life Movement and a fellow coach for more than 7 years, I know the challenges that many of you face when launching or growing your coaching business. And I'm here to pull back the curtain on the coaching industry and help you overcome roadblocks to make the impact you were born to make. Each week, I'll be interviewing successful coaches from every corner of the industry to share exactly how they have managed to generate massive impact and income. From strategy to psychology, we cover it all. This show is presented to you by Transformation Academy, a global marketplace of courses and coaching certifications. So whether you are already part of our epic community or you're brand new to this show, if you're ready to learn what it takes to turn your passion for service into a profitable business, then keep listening. You are in the right place. Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Profitable Coach Podcast. Today I am joined by the beautiful Riya Rose. She is a lifelong spiritual seeker and has dedicated over 15 years to deep study and practice. She is a clinical herbalist, a registered 500-hour yoga teacher, priestess, and ceremonialist, and she channels her extensive knowledge and experience to empower others on their transformative journeys. Through her leadership in numerous workshops over the years and the development of impactful trainings, along with her one-on-one guidance, Riya has guided countless individuals to embrace an embodied and empowered way of living. Today we talk about how she grew her in-person yoga teaching practice into a credible festival circuit speaker and has been able to partner with some of the biggest names in the industry. I'm super excited because I think that Riya brings a very unique flair to this coaching conversation, and I can't wait to share it with you. If you are brand new to the show, I encourage you, definitely subscribe and leave us a review. Moving forward, every month, we are rewarding one of our reviewers with a free certification from the Transformation Academy course library. So definitely do that and pay attention. We will be announcing the winner in next week's episode. All right, without further ado, please welcome the one and only Riya Rose. Hello and welcome back to the Profitable Coach Podcast. I'm super stoked today. I have the beautiful Riya Rose with me, and I'm really thrilled because I feel like Riya has such a beautiful energy about the way that she serves, and I've been lucky enough to experience some of her medicine and her magic in person at some women's groups in Salt Lake City. So I'm thrilled to have you, Riya. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so before we dive in, I would love for you to give people a little background on what it was that initially drew you to coaching, and then maybe how it's evolved over time.
Yeah, I would love that. Really, like most people, it was my own healing journey. So, I started teaching yoga. I was owning a yoga studio, and I was learning clinical herbalism to more than anything fix my own issues that I had in my body, the imbalances I had in my body. The way that Western medicine was trying to help me really wasn't cutting it. It wasn't fixing the root of the problem. And so I knew it was deeper. I knew it was spiritual. I knew it was deep physical imbalances, had to do with my diet and my lifestyle. And I went on this whole healing journey. And as I did that, people really just continued to ask me for help as they were watching me on this journey. Friends, family, even clients in the yoga studio would get in conversations and they would go, well, can you help me do what you did? Fast forward all of these trainings later, and it felt more like a natural evolution of my own work and my own embodiment, kind of drawing people in to want to know what it is I was doing that was healing me, that was making me feel great in my body and grounded, and yeah. So I think that's really how it flowed. It's just kind of naturally.
And one of the things that I want to highlight that you shared is people were coming to you sort of organically who were a couple steps behind where you currently were at and saying, hey, I want the results that you've created for yourself. Hey, I want to achieve what you've achieved. I want to feel the way you feel. And I think that a lot of new coaches come into the coaching industry really excited, really gung-ho, and then all of a sudden a little imposter syndrome creeps in and they're like, well, who am I? What do I know? How can I help people? But if we go back to, well, how are you already helping people? What are
Mm.
people already asking you for? And if you're having trouble like articulating the process that you've gone through or realizing the journey that you've been through, then just look at exactly that. What are people already asking you for? So I love that you said that. And it was like such a perfect answer for a lot of the questions that I get from brand new coaches. All right. So it started to evolve over time. You know, now we've got a little bit more of a spiritual element. And so, how did you move from yoga studio owner to I run retreats, I host circles, I work one on one with people? Like, how did that evolve over time?
Yeah. It was similarly organic as starting to step into coaching work, right? I just started having people ask. I think that was as simple as that. People came to me. I don't feel like I ever really sat down one day and was like, I'm going to do this. I feel like I got asked, can you do this for, and then that's how my whole journey with everything started was people, I started hosting women's circles because I was working with new and full moon every single month. Women knew that and they were asking if they could come. And I was
Mm.
like, sure. And then it outgrew my house, and then I had to rent a space, and then I had to charge them because I was paying for the space. And then I realized, 2 years in, hey, I've developed a lot of skills around this. I've learned a lot. I'm going to charge a little bit more than just to cover the space. And now here I am 8 years later, and I'm still doing this, but it just kind of grew like from the women's circles. We wanted deeper containers. I wanted to be able to go deeper with people. Well, the next logical step would be a full weekend immersion where I have space and time to take everybody deeper. And so I feel that it is a logical next step to deepen into all of these things, right? Like talking with someone after a yoga class for 5, 10 minutes. Well, they wanted more. Okay, well, let me put together packages for one-on-one offers. Um,
Hmm.
and so for me, it was, and I know not everybody has this journey. A lot of people are like, I am going to do this, and they choose it and they step into it. For me, I feel honestly, the imposter syndrome issue was so strong for me that I actually
Mm.
needed like many, many people asking me for something before I was ready to step into it and embody it. Like the universe had to be like, okay, let's send her 5 more people because she's not listening. How
I
many
love
people
that.
have to ask?
Sometimes the messages are very clear and they hit us over the head. I have my own personal stories, but we'll save that for another day.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I really appreciate about your journey is that it's a lot of in-person work. I think a lot of coaches immediately think that I need to have this huge online presence. I'm supposed to have 1 million followers. Who am I to invite someone to be a guest on a podcast I want to launch? Or who am I to invite people to a retreat if I don't have the social proof to show them I'm worthy of that? So walk me through how it was outside of people just approaching you and asking, how it was you then started to grow these experiences in person and what that type of like kind of guerrilla marketing looked like.
Yeah, honestly, it was this combination of showing up when 2 people were coming, right? Like when I started teaching yoga, when I started doing circles, there would be like 3 people coming. It was really awkward sometimes. I would host a yoga class and it would be like me and one other person and we're both like, I'm a brand new teacher. I'm already nervous. They thought they were
Yeah.
going to be in a class full of people and we're just staring at each other. Uh, and instead of getting discouraged, just continuing to show up and know and and it's scary. You plan something, you launch something, you have no idea how many people are going to actually show up. And sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
And it sucks and you got to keep going and you just keep going. I think another big part of this was showing up in service. So continually showing up in the community, right? Like volunteering for certain events, activities, doing free classes in the park, doing free circles, here and there, like just really being in service and showing up, not because I'm trying to even market, but because I genuinely want to help everybody, whether they can pay me or not, and structuring my life in, well, how can I do that? How can I have offerings that are low cost or free, right? Like my women's circles were like $30, $20, whatever. Like
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of money, but we're going to sit together for 2 hours and go deep. And I'm going to give you the same quality that the people who are paying me the high ticket, dollars for these coaching containers are paying me. I'm going to give you the same value and my same presence. So I think doing that, not even intentionally doing it for marketing, it became one of my strongest marketing tactics, even though it wasn't originally for marketing.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
that goes back to the ability to continuously reconnect to our why, right? Like if our why is to be of service, then it helps to remove the ego and it helps us to just show up no matter how many people are there. And I think that one mistake or one myth that a lot of people believe when they're first launching their coaching business is that they're comparing themselves to these overnight successes. And so the myth is that there is such a thing as an overnight success. It's like, no, you found someone at the 10th year of them hustling and hustling, or the 10,000th post or whatever. And so really recognizing that a very real part of the journey is the empty classes, the failed launches, the crickets, at your first workshop or whatever. And so, yeah, I think that that's a really important point to make.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crucial, and it's something that I don't think I was warned about when I started this journey, that, you're gonna launch and no one might come, and
Yeah.
that's okay. You might launch a course and no one even cares, like, or looks or notices, and that's okay. Yeah, and as I've been stepping more into the online space and stepping more into festivals and bigger platforms, that happens. That doesn't really happen anymore, but it was a big part of the journey for, I would say, at least a couple years at the beginning.
Yeah. So talk a little bit more about that. You just mentioned festivals.
Hmm.
That's probably something that so many brand new coaches haven't even thought of, but would be a really fun thing to have on their vision board. So what are some of the cool opportunities that you've added to your portfolio over the years?
Yeah. So as I started to, do these women's circles, do these events, I started to connect with more and more people in the same work as me. And some of them were creating these huge conscious festivals or events and meeting teachers, meeting people to create experiences at those events. And um, I just stepped into starting to do that, to start to create some tantric experiences, some yoga and movement experiences, some conscious circles and connection. And as I did that, it's insane how connected you get, how quickly you get connected to the spiritual community, which is actually relatively small globally.
Hmm. Hmm.
Everybody is connected. And
Yeah.
so then you
It
do
feels like we're in a
one,
bubble.
it does. Yeah. You do one, and then you meet a person at that one who's like, oh my God, you were amazing. You have to come do mine. And then you do an, boom, 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 you keep going and you keep going. And it's been a blessing. I definitely don't do all of them. I'm very choosy at this point. When I started, I would take whatever one I could get.
Yeah.
Now I'm a little bit more discerning about the festivals that I choose, because I travel already for retreats and for ceremonies. So I try to keep the travel time in my life to a minimum. But if you don't have children, or that's not a concern for you, doing as many festivals will get you connected and plugged in so quickly.
Hmm.
And it's amazing.
Yeah. And one thing that I want to note is whether it's a festival or it's a conference or whatever the proverbial in-person large scale event or small scale event is in your industry or in your particular niche of coaching, attend them. like go as a researcher, see what other people are facilitating, see what workshops other people are really enjoying and getting transformation out of, and then start to see which ones would feel fun for you to create and that you can develop some confidence around. Because I think that a lot of coaches are trying to do this in a vacuum, especially coming out of COVID. Like they're not yet getting their feet wet again in the in-person space. And for me, that's always been the most lucrative and the most community generating, was to just show up as an excited, interested, enthusiastic attendee. And you meet a lot of people.
You do. Yeah. And absolutely, that is the beauty of it, is even if you're not teaching, yeah, go. I mean, before I started teaching at festivals, I was going to them and I was
Yeah.
meeting people and they were saying, "Oh, you teach? Ooh, well, you should maybe look into doing this next time as a teacher, as a guide." And of course, when I'm teaching maybe for an hour. The rest of the time I'm
Yeah.
going, I'm participating, I'm experiencing other people, I'm letting them know I enjoyed their class, and that has really created, and it's from a genuine place, right? Like you're not going to their classes just to market research. Like for me, I'm like a puppy dog. I genuinely love people. I want to see what they're doing. I'm so proud of them when they do it well. Um,
Yeah.
so feeling that and anchoring into that, like, wow, people are incredible. And just going to things you feel drawn to from that place of like, people are incredible, has been a game changer for me in just
Yeah.
like putting down the networking hat, like taking it off and just showing up like, aren't people incredible? You'll be
Yes.
so much more magnetic that way and so much more, connected to the people and the experience. So,
Yeah, I think a lot of people have trepidation and reservations about going and networking. I mean, I'm somewhat of an extrovert and I hate that word because it feels in my mind, it feels inauthentic. It's like there's an outcome in mind. I'm going to have an angle versus just being genuinely curious and excited. So I love that perspective of like people are awesome and I want to go tell them how awesome they are and I want to experience their awesomeness, and then it becomes this like positive feedback loop. I mean, I hope you felt that from me when I attended your full moon circle. I was like, that was so amazing.
yeah, absolutely, I did. Yeah, and this is perfect example because, that's how we met. Is
Yeah.
because you just genuinely came to something and you were there to just be in the experience of it. And
Yeah.
you just never know what's going to come from showing up in a heart-centered, open place of connection.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we're all here to create this fabric of community, of connection. And even if it's just so I can refer somebody to you, right? Like if you have skills I don't have, that's an important part of being a coach and a leader in the space, is to say, well, maybe I can't help you, but they can.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I want to talk a little bit about what we call joint ventures in Transformation Academy, but horizontal complementary relationships and promotions that you've done. Like what has some of this genuine networking created for you? I mean, this interview right now is a perfect example that we talk about in our Quantum Leap program. It's like we're working together. I'm sharing Raya Rose's beautiful skills that are different from mine, but I'd love to hear some of the other ways that you've collaborated over the years.
Yeah, I mean, the one that's coming to mind right now is what I have coming up, which is the Embodied Leadership course. And so
Mm.
in that course, I got on the call for Yari, who has created Unleash
Hmm.
movement, which is this conscious, substance-free experience for, you know, 4 days. And I wanted her to do the part, because we're journeying through the energy centers. So I felt like I would love her to hold down the solar plexus because she's got self-expression freaking dialed
Yeah.
in. Like she is a powerful embodiment of self-expression. And so I called her to be like, hey, and we knew each other already, from mutual friends, from going to Unleash. I was like, hey, I would love to invite you to be a guest facilitator. The rate, da da da. And she was like, while we're on the call, by the way, I would love you to come teach at Unleash in November. And I was like, yeah, I would love that, right? So it's this beautiful thing of intuitively feeling like, oh yeah, I've genuinely just shown up and supported this person's work because it's awesome. And now I want to showcase her again on my platforms. And as I'm doing that, she's going, oh, you know what? I want to showcase you on my platform. And
Yeah.
I'm like, cool. And so that's a really great example of like, my intention was not to, you know, get her featured on my platform so she'll feature me on her platform. I just wanted the best possible person to teach a solar plexus activation workshop that I can find. And she is the
Mm-hmm.
best person I can think of. And it just led to this like reciprocal exchange of like, I want to feature you on my platform. I want you to come to my event and teach. And
Yeah.
yeah, that is like the most recent example of that. But I feel like everything I've ever done has worked somewhat like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that some of the more enjoyable, at least, experiences that I've created and invited people into was things that I didn't have to run all by myself or that I didn't have to create every element of on my own because I know people in my network who are better than that or who are better at that. And so one example is I ran a 100 Days to High Vibe program in 2021. And every week I had a guest expert come in. So we had a hypnotherapist, we had a sound bowl healing, we had a yoga teacher, we had an affirmations expert. And so it was very cool to be able to bring in all of these different high vibe individuals. And I didn't have to like pose or posture as someone who knew anything about hypnotherapy because I don't at this point, but it was so valuable. So I think that there's a lot to be said for collaborations, not just in the sense of added value, but also feeling like you're not doing it alone. And
Mm-hmm.
the whole weight of the transformation and the results isn't on your shoulders. So always want to bring
Right.
up collaborations where possible.
Yeah. And in the marketing aspect of collaborating, right? Like now, I always give an affiliate link to people who are part of my courses. So when they share about this thing they're part of, they're getting 10%, and I'm getting exposed to an entire new, group of people that might have never seen my course otherwise.
Yes.
And
I love
they
that.
like her and they relate with her already. And so, oh, you're a part of this? Okay, that might be something I'm interested in because I've already built this connection with her. So
Yeah.
let me check out this container she's part of, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that that's something people often forget too. We think of affiliates as, oh, let me make some of my big name, big following connections my affiliates, but no, inviting the people who are already jazzed to be part of your container to be affiliates right out the gate could get you more individuals in that specific container than you would have gotten otherwise. So I think that's
Hmm.
really important, and I wanted to make sure that we like emphasize this practice that Raya is doing because I think that it can be really useful, especially for new coaches who just don't have a big list yet or a big following. So make a note of that, you
Hmm.
guys.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
it's huge. It's huge.
I'm curious if there's anything specific you really wish you had known when you were first starting out.
Yeah. I think what's coming to mind right now is just because you're new and starting out, I think, of course, it takes time to kind of rise up in your experience and your confidence, but noting how you're categorizing yourself internally. Like for the longest time, I would not reach out to people who I admired to be part of my containers because I was categorizing myself as less than them. Why would they do my thing? I'm just this person over here. Like, why would they do my thing? I don't know what I'm doing. Why would they be? And it was all subconscious, and I didn't even realize it until I let go of it. And I think I held myself back for so much longer than I needed to by like subconsciously believing that I wasn't as good as like this person who has, you know, 50,000 followers. Just because they have 50,000 followers, they're like so much better than me. And they're not even going to give me the time of day kind
Mm-hmm.
of like vibes in my head and realizing like, no, man, if you pay them and you make the value right and you really value them and what they're bringing to the table for who they are beyond their 50,000 followers, then they'll meet you in who you are and the value you're
Yeah.
creating. And they'll be open to connecting with you just because you're a human, just because you're reaching out to them and witnessing them in their power. Um, and when that clicked and I sort of realized that, I just kind of automatically stepped into like bigger rooms, right? Like bigger stages, literally bigger experience, collaborating with bigger names, when I just stopped subconsciously believing that I wasn't as good as these people that I was inspired by.
Yeah. I
So,
think this is
yeah,
a really important thing that I offer to any client I work with, which is the act as if, because I think the common practice is to wait until we feel like the thing we want to be before we can own being that thing, which is, I know that it's counterintuitive to act as if, but that's actually what works better. And I talk about this with all of my group programs. Like, I wasn't a podcaster until I said, I have a podcast. I now podcast. Would you like to come on it? Like, that is literally how you start to do the thing, is to do the thing. And
yeah,
so I want to encourage anyone who's listening that if you are brand new, or even if you're looking to scale and you're somewhere in the first, 5-figure mark, 6-figure mark, but you really want to take it up a notch, the trick is to start acting as if, create your business, create your habits, create your network as if you were already that 6-figure or 7-figure coach. Don't wait, because
right.
it won't come.
Exactly. Yes. It's really looking at those embodied beliefs that are saying like, you're not good enough, you're not enough. And really looking at those, healing them. And then if this wasn't a belief I held, then what would I be?
Yeah.
If I didn't believe I wasn't enough, how would I act? And act like that. Like get in front of your 200 followers like they're 50,000 and show up
Yeah.
every day in front of them like they are drooling and waiting and hanging on every word you say. Show up that way. And then
Yeah.
you'll grow and you'll grow and reach out to those people you feel excited to collaborate with and reach for those opportunities that feel like scary and go right. And that is really how you step into the next level. And it seems impossible that it's as simple as that. But it's,
I
in
know.
my experience, it is.
Things are often simpler than we think they need to be. You said, how would I act if I didn't have that story? And it reminds me of something that I feel like you can appreciate, because you mentioned ceremony space, and I know we have some similar interests there. My very first night of ayahuasca was easily the hardest night of my life. And I want to tell this story because I think it's important, for me at least, to be able to extract takeaways from ceremony space. And so I don't fall into the pattern of just ceremony for the sake of ceremony. And so my very first night was one of the hardest nights of my life, very physically painful. I was the one who needed support. A friend of mine was assisting, and he was holding my hand for hours, giving me support. And I was resisting. I had a lot of stories around being the only person in the room who needed that level of support, being the only person who was physically this uncomfortable and who was just having a terrible time. And I realized 6 hours later, when the journey actually did end, I thought it was going to continue forever. Shocker. It ended. Spoiler alert. I realized if I hadn't had such a story around whatever my current experience was, it would have passed so much faster. I would have had less physical pain in my body. I would have had less existential pain. Like, the entire thing would have just transmuted much faster. But instead, I was clinging to the story that I had about being wrong and being needy. And that ultimately is what caused me even more pain. So I love to just pull that into every area of my life. How would I show up here if I didn't have a story around the fact that I hadn't shown up? Maybe it's on social media. If I hadn't shown up on social media for a while and I had no story around how that looked, how might I show up today? If I didn't have a story around my relationship with this particular family member, how would I show up? Would I just reach out and be loving? So I think this can be applied in a lot of areas of life. And I think that it's really useful. And so I feel like I didn't suffer for 6 hours for nothing. All right. So one of the things that I think is really useful to have in your toolbox as a coach are ways, people, processes, whatever the operative word is, to move through the inevitable roadblocks that come up. So I would love to hear a little bit about like some of the things that you've come up against in your journey as a business owner and as a coach, and how you've moved through those things with such grace.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it was with grace. It feels like sometimes not so much, but yeah, I think the biggest things actually have been, the way I see it is when you are in this work, when I'm going to launch a container or when I'm going to step into the next level of my magic or holding ceremonies, whatever the case may be, I'm going to get initiated so hard first before I am able to step into that next level. I am personally going to get like wrung out by the universe. Everything that is in the way of that, everything that's not in alignment with that energetic, it's like I'm going to get wrung out. And making space and foreseeing that that is going to happen and actually creating space for yourself for those inevitable initiatory periods that are going to make you go, oh my God, what am I doing? Is this even what I should be doing? Oh my God. Like you just want to like turn around and run the other way because you're like, there's no way that I'm going to get through this fear. No way I'm going to transmute this energy that I'm facing, this shadow that I'm facing. There's no way. And creating these spaces to drop into my own processes. So, that looks like knowing like, okay, I'm going to launch this container and am I creating space in my schedule for my own time? Because I'm inevitably going to need to like cry, going to need to face some really big fears, going to need to like transmute some energy because I'm holding a new space. I'm going to be guiding people in this new, um, deeper, energetic, and I'm going to be prepared for that by the universe. And it's not always going to be easy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that, you know, making these reactions or these big emotions that come up in our business, making them okay is kind of step one, right? Like understanding they're part of the process, understanding that they're inevitable. I have probably cried in my room at every single retreat I've ever hosted, not because things were going bad. They were going great, but it's just a lot of energy to hold that much space. And it's a lot of um, transformation happening within me as a leader when I hold new levels of space or I teach new things. And so just embracing that that's part of it, I think is a beautiful step one. And like you said, creating the space to have that experience for yourself so that you can alchemize the energy and then show back up and move forward. I think that's beautiful.
yeah, absolutely. It's like step one because I think at first, when you're new and these feelings come up, you're like, oh my God, am I even cut out for this? Is it okay that I feel afraid and I feel like I can't do this? And none of these people who seem so confident are feeling this way. They must not be feeling this way. And they totally are. We all are. We all are crying in our rooms. We all are processing and transmuting. My favorite place is the bathroom floor for some reason. Um, you crawl out of the bath, you lay on the bathroom floor, you have a good cry, everything is fine. Um, and realize it's like this is the universe. This is what it is to be an embodied being. There is the darkness and there is the light. And as long as you're prepared for that, I think you can do anything.
Yeah, and kind of along this same vein, I'm curious if you run your business differently because you're a woman. And by that, I mean, are you honoring the natural phases and the natural ebbs and flows of our energy as women with a moon cycle and what that might look like? Because I think that that's something a lot of women forget and they try and run their business like men.
Yeah, the first 2 days of my cycle are not I don't hold space. I don't do sessions. The first day, I'm definitely in bed. Like, I'm relaxing, I'm resting. I'm either going out in nature and resting, or I'm resting in my bed, moving big emotions. And also, they have this misconception about, like women going into the red tent or into caves in tribal cultures. And they said, oh, it was because women were unclean. And the actuality, the reason that women were going and separating themselves into caves and into red tents is because the veil is the thinnest for us when we're on our moon. And so we are able to access deeper levels of consciousness, deeper downloads for the collective when we take our time away. And so the work I do, it's essential that I go into the deep cave on my moon and journey and see what's there and see what new levels I can access and see what information I can download and rest. And then, as my energy starts building, I try to get as much like, recording of videos, going out in the world. Like during my ovulatory phase, I try to be as like active in the world as possible and really use that energy to the most, so that when it's time to rest, I have things already kind of moving and going without me, right? Like things are set up already to be running without me, so I can have that space to rest. And it took a while to figure this out, that if I didn't do this, I was actually going to burn out. And that is way less productive than just taking a day or two to rest every month, than like burning out and running away for 2 months because I feel like I can't do this anymore. And then everybody's like, where have you been? And then you just show back up and you start from scratch. I've done that maybe twice, because the burnout is real. And that was pretty
Yeah.
early on. Yeah. So,
I think that this is something I'm seeing a lot more of as well on social media, is people coming forward with sort of the truth or the behind the scenes of their burnout, and kind of restructuring how they run their business, and re-communicating how they talk about how they run their business. And this is more specific to like business coaches that I'm seeing. Like, well, actually, I was working 100 hours a week and it wasn't sustainable and I burnt out. So I'd love to hear how you manage the unconscious or conscious pressures that we face by seeing what is seeming to work for other people in this industry online, and then doing what actually feels authentic for you and what is actually sustainable for you.
yeah. So I actually base this a lot on the wheel of the year and the seasons. So I love to be anchored into the earth and into her seasons. And so I know in the winter time, and then for me personally, astrologically, I know what times of the year are also hard for me as a fire person. Pisces season is not the time to do a launch for me. Not it, not the time. That's a super hard time. I don't like it. I'm going to feel really uncomfortable. I'm going to be processing a lot of deep feelings. And then I'm going to start fresh in Aries season. Aries season is a great time for a launch. So just starting to realize this and know that when I work with the cycles of the earth and the stars, I'm going to be in the flow of this, the energy of the universe. And how much easier is that than trying to like force my own flow and my own energetic forward, than just to go ahead and hop along the energetic that's already flowing all around me. And when I do that, it's so much more powerful and so much more impactful than me trying to like come out of my winter cave and my feelings and be like, join my course.
I love that you brought up astrology, because I've had a recent new awareness around my sun, my moon, and my rising. And I feel like you can appreciate this. So my sun is Aries, fiery, bold, assertive, bold life movement, my coaching business and my original podcast, and just very on brand. My moon is Pisces. So my emotional home is so deep and sensitive, and ebbs and flows quite drastically. And then my rising is Capricorn. So people perceive this like very put together, very successful, financially oriented individual. And having this awareness has helped me to sort of see where I've stumbled in the past, because I would think, oh, I was supposed to XYZ, I should have been able to. I'm an Aries. Why? It's my brand. Why couldn't I? And so having a little more compassion. And so I'm bringing this up for anyone uh, who has any interest in astrology, personality, typing systems, whatever. Take them or leave them. I understand the resistance to put yourself in a box. However, deeper understanding of myself as a coach makes me a better coach because I don't judge my follies, and I feel like I have a greater compassion for the complexities of my clients, and I can execute more authentically both in the business and like in interpersonal relations. So I love that you brought up astrology. I think that it's one of your fortes for sure. I've experienced that at your full moon circles and your new moon circles. So I love getting the Raya flavor tossed in.
Yeah.
So one of the other things I would love to hear is, when we are evolving and our packages and our offerings are evolving, our niche, this is a really popular word in the coaching industry, our niche is evolving. How have you embraced new interests that you want to offer and shifted how you market or who you target by adding new things to your repertoire?
Yeah. That's a great question. Um, and I just wanted to say too, if people are, just closing out that last thought loop, it's like if people are not in connection to putting themselves in the box of like astrological labels or even personality typing, it's really as simple as just being in your body and paying attention to the seasons and starting to notice, you know what, every year around, January, I don't feel good. I don't feel like I want to go out. I feel like I want to stay home. And then every year in like July, I am like the freaking social butterfly of all. And just notice. You don't even have to put labels on any of it. Just start to notice and work with that and work with that information and really know yourself and know your body because you'll be such an effective human if you can do that, if you can just honor that instead of trying to force, the trees are not even holding their leaves year round. The flowers aren't blooming year round. Nothing is expected to be at its most extravagant year round. And if they did, they would die because they wouldn't have enough energy to keep themselves alive because it takes so much energy to create and bloom a flower, which is why they don't last, right? So we're like expecting ourselves to be in full bloom year round, and it's just not the way, this human realm is built. So, anyway, that being said, yeah, I've changed quite a lot, right? Like my original brand was so like tight yoga pants, crazy yoga shapes, like all of the photos, like toes touching my head, super ripped, like all yoga all the time. Um, and not that I don't still utilize yoga, not that I don't still love yoga, but it's actually now like the initiatory thing that I use to bring people into embodiment and then guide them into deeper things. It's like a step on the path now instead of the end game. And I think it really was just this natural thing. Like, I don't wear tight yoga pants anymore because I don't want to. I got so tired of owning a yoga studio, teaching and practicing for 10 years and like just being in these tight freaking things all the time. I was like, one day, the more I got in my body, the more I was like, ugh, if I wear yoga pants one more time, I think I'm going to lose it. Um, so I just naturally started to dress more flowy. And then I naturally started to get into more mystical things as I got more in my body. And so then I started to want to wear things that were energetic signatures of what I was trying to embody. Um, and as I did that, it obviously changed my like brand, my outer appearance. And then I started to naturally be drawn to taking more photographs outside and like having the photographs be a natural embodiment of the art and the mysticism that I was feeling inside. And so for me, it was really just continuing to check in and continuing to embody the most authentic version of myself. And that naturally was like an incremental journey. And people did have a big reaction. I did have some people close to me as I started to step into this more mystical realm and priestess realm, you know, I think we all have that fear, or I think a lot of us have that fear when we step out into the online space. Are people going to judge me? Are people going to react to me? Especially the people that already know me. You know, if I add this new part of myself, like if, you know, maybe you get into tantra or pleasure work and you're like, oh man, but if I really embody that online, um, I might get some pretty big reactions from people that know me. And yeah, you might. And it happened to me, right? Like the worst case scenario, sit down by family and them being like, are you worshiping the devil? Kind of conversation, and me being
Oh
like,
my gosh.
definitely not what's happening. But it actually was great because my worst fear happened and I got to realize I'm totally fine. And now I have no reason to even think twice about embodying my full self online because the worst possible thing happened. I was totally fine. I was able to stay in my power. I was able to stay in unconditional love and meet them and be like, I hear your concerns, but this is my truth. And I know this is coming from love, but this is where I'm coming from. And, you know, not that they love it, but they are now just in acceptance of it. And so, yeah, I think it's really showing up all vulnerably and authentically despite the fears. When you embody a new thing in your own practice, bring it forth, share it fully. And as you do, I think your brand will be more authentic. So,
You must be reading my mind because I was going to ask you, has there been anything sort of edgy or new or fringe that you've brought into your brand that was scary? And you answered it perfectly. So yeah, moving through whatever the fear of judgment is. It could be because it's an edgy thing that you want to teach about or talk about. It could be because you're just positioning yourself as an expert for the first time in your whole life and your family's like, who do you think you are? Guess what? You're not here to coach your family. You're here to coach the people who need your unique medicine. So having people like Riya as an expander to show you, hey, I've done it. My worst fear was realized. And guess what? I'm still standing, I'm still coaching, and life goes on. And finding additional examples to give you that sense of like, okay, I got this. I'm not in it alone. If she can do it, I can do it. So yeah, beautiful share. Riya, before we wrap up, I would love to hear if you could leave all of the coaches listening, whether they are brand new or they are trying to scale, with one piece of encouragement or wisdom, what would it be?
what a great question. Yeah, I think truly the best thing you can do is be in your body. Because if you're trying to lead and you're trying to guide other people and you're in your head and you're completely disconnected from this entire world and the wisdom of your body, you're going to meet burnout. You're going to get tripped up by ego. You're going to be less connected to your guides, to the earth, to the wisdom, you know, whatever words you use for all of this, like your gut feeling, your gut instinct, right? Instead of guides, whatever word you want to use. If you're not in your body first, doing this work and showing up for other people, you're going to meet a lot of pitfalls. Whereas if you're in your body and you're honoring your body, you're going to be able to do work that is grounded, humble, and sustainable. You're muted, love.
I love that. Humble and sustainable. So potent. Yeah, great answer, Riya. So I would love to share with everyone, where can they get more of you? Where can they follow you? Where can they support your offerings? And what are the best links to do so?
Yeah, so Instagram is a great place to start. I'm the Embodied Priestess on Instagram. And my website, wellnesspriestess.com, is where all of my like one-on-one offerings are, all of my courses. I have free meditations and downloads on there. So much good stuff. Yeah, so those are the two best places to connect.
Perfect. We will make sure to have all of those in the show notes as well. So stay tuned for that link. Riya, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's such a pleasure to bring your unique, feminine, magical energy into this container. I think that it's something different that all of our listeners can really benefit from. So thank you so much. Big thank you to Riya Rose. For all of you brand new coaches who are listening, I highly encourage you to go over to theprofitablecoach.com/freebie, where you can get access to our free Life Coach Launch mini course. This is going to help you master the art of attracting clients. And if anything we talked about today should stand out, it is how necessary it is for you to be in alignment with the clients that you're magnetizing. So go ahead and head over to theprofitablecoach.com/freebie. And if you want any more information about Riya and some of the resources that we chatted about today, then you can get all the show notes at theprofitablecoach.com/006 for episode 6. Thanks again, guys. I appreciate you so much, and I'll catch you next week.